Hey guys, it's Trish here from Techniques by Trish. Thanks for joining me again. Today I'm creating a card that I was truly inspired by something. So I decided to label this series Inspired By because I have quite a few cards where I was either inspired by someone or a color combination or pattern. And so we're just going to make this one whole series. So I'm starting out with Simon Says Stamp 110-pound heavyweight cardstock, which I love this stuff, especially for one layer cards. And I'm taking the Lawn Fawn Color My World mini stamp set, and I'm going to use that to stamp this crayon over and over again as my background, which will then turn into my focal point of my card. Now this card was almost a one-hit wonder card, which is where I just use one stamp set to create the whole card, but I needed a tiny heart to fill in the area, so I went to the Lawn Fawn Treat Yourself mini stamp set and I used that to go ahead and fill that area in. I stamped the crayon with the Hippo ink from Lawn Fawn because at the time I hadn't received the Manatee, which probably would have been the perfect color. But what I did was I took the Hippo ink and I stamped off it and then onto my card. So it's second generation stamping because I wanted a really, really faint gray color. So once I've done that and covered my whole background, I went and took the MFT Pierced Hearts die and just traced the heart so I had a guideline as to what I wanted the spotlight on my card to be, which was a heart shape. So then I'm just going in with my Copics and I'm just taking 2 shades for each of the crayons to actually color the body of the crayons. I'll go in with a lighter shade to go ahead and color in the wrapping of the crayons because that tends to be a lighter color when you have a crayon box. But for my crayons, I went with just 2 shades of each color to create a little bit of shading, and I've listed all the colors there to the left side of the screen, and then I'll also go ahead and post that on my blog with a list of supplies. Now, when I was doing this, I did one crayon at a time because I really wanted them to just be not 2 colors touching each other. So I went and did one crayon at a time to be sure that each color was kind of separated. And then you'll see here that I'm just using 1 shade to color the wrapping of the crayon to really keep it really simple. And it really did go by quite quickly because I'm just focusing on that one spotlighted area to go ahead and color in the crayons. Now, once I've colored in all the crayons, and you'll see down at the bottom I missed one, I noticed that even though the crayons in the heart were colored, it still wasn't looking like it was making a heart, and that area behind it needed to be shaded and filled in a little bit. So I went with my lightest gray tones, and it was C0 and C1. I colored the whole thing C0, and then I went in with my C1 and just adding some shading around each of the crayons to just create a little bit more depth and dimension to it. And then I'm going back in with C1 to blend, or C0, excuse me, to just blend it all out. And you'll see there that now that heart really pops off from the rest of the background of the card. So then I went and grabbed one of my absolute favorite erasers. It's a Pentel. I've used these all throughout college and high school, and they're just my absolute favorite erasers. They're a really great eraser, and I just erased all my pencil lines and made sure that was totally removed. And then I went to the inside of my card because I wanted to keep the focal point as was on the front. So I'm using the sentiment on the inside that comes with the stamp set, and I'm stamping that in the Tim Holtz Distress ink and Antique Linen because I want a really faint background. Because instead of selectively inking each individual letter for the word color, I decided that I would go ahead and just use the Copics that I used in coloring the crayons to color the word. And so I'm using there was 5 letters, and so I'm using the 5 colors that I actually used on the front of the card to go ahead and fill that in. So it was much easier to do it this way than it would be if I wanted to selectively ink up each individual letter and then stamp it repeatedly, although it would be quite easy with the Misty, and that's why I'm using it in this case to go ahead and selectively ink up the U and my world. But I just thought that this would be easier and quicker for me overall. So once I've gone ahead and colored in the word color, I'm selectively masking off the rest of the stamp set and just inking up the U and then my world. And for the black, I'm sticking with the Lawn Fawn Black Licorice ink. They were just, all my Lawn Fawn inks were close by, and so that's what I grabbed to create this card. And I actually really enjoy the Lawn Fawn inks, so I normally tend to keep them pretty close by regardless. So I went ahead and stamped the U, and then I'm cleaning off my stamp, making sure that it's totally dry so that it doesn't cause any type of bleeding with my Copics or the word U that's already been stamped. And then I'll go ahead and selectively mask off the rest of the stamp again and just leave the bottom portion of the sentiment and go ahead and re-ink that with the black licorice ink from Lawn Fawn. And then I'll go ahead and stamp that over my sentiment so that the whole thing is nice and crisp and it stands out. And I just like how it all came together. I was really considering putting the sentiment on the outside of the card, but I felt like it was just distracting too much from all that coloring and what we really wanted to achieve on the front of the card, so I just stuck it on the inside, because sometimes you just need a little something on the inside of your card. So this happened to be the perfect fit. This mini stamp set is just great and can be used in so many different ways. And the sentiment just coordinates beautifully with the stamp set, and Lawn Fawn always does an awesome job of just doing that. So here you see the finished inside, and I really love how it turned out. So then when I went to the front of the card again, I felt like it was just missing a little bit something, and I could have used my Wink of Stella on all of the crayons, but I thought that the hearts that were there really just needed to stand out a little bit more. So I'm using my Xmas Red Stickles and just carefully applying it on each of the hearts inside of that larger heart that we really spotlighted on the card front. And I'm just filling those in. This card was totally inspired by a card that Christina Warner created about a year ago, where she was using, actually surprisingly, a Lawn Fawn stamp set, and she used a circle to spotlight the front of her card. And I was just inspired by that technique, and I thought I wanted to take my own take on it. And so I decided, since the sentiment was a little bit on the lovey side, I would use a heart instead of a different shape. And so this is my take on the inspired by spotlight coloring technique. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this card. I really had a ton of fun creating it, and I will check you guys in the next video.